Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Ril Gerald Quinn, coming to you on election night. Can you imagine this time next year? We what that's going to look like? I just thought about that. It's 2023, of course, 2024. That's going to be, another conversation for another day. We'll have an entire year to discuss that shit. But I'm happy to be with you on this Tuesday evening, episode 929 of the Real Deal podcast. Of course, we're going to look back at week number 9 of the NFL season. We are basically officially at halftime of the NFL season, and a lot of themes. Of course, the title of this episode is going to be "Hey, we need a quarterback," and a number of teams this week that would love to have. Forget about Mahomes is or Lamar Jackson. They would love to have a Kirk Cousins or somebody of that ilk. To be perfectly honest with you, the way this quarterback market is looking in the NFL, just not a lot there. It's just not. It is the have and the absolute have-nots, and that middle class as far as the quarterback goes. You know, you can complain about Dak Prescott all you want. Again, a lot of teams would take a Dak Prescott right now. A lot, trust me. So we'll talk about that. But we begin with, again, themes, NFL Week 9, halftime. We will discuss what the NFL season could be looking like moving forward when we go into Week 10. But we're going to begin with all the thoughts. Buffalo falls to Cincinnati 24-18 in a game that, frankly, was not as close as the score indicated would show. Saying you never got the sense that Kansas City was not going to win this game. They were up, 21-10 at one point. Really controlled this game from the start. They, pushed the Bills around the field physically. Bills out again. Here's the bottom line about the Bills. Again, Cincinnati, we know who Cincinnati is. Now they have back-to-back wins over the 49ers and the Bills, and they are playing as well as any team in the league. So we know what Cincinnati is all about. They're going to be there, right? They're going to be there in January. Maybe I'm late to the party when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, and maybe I've given them too much respect, considering how many games they've won over the last 3 or 4 regular seasons. They've been in a conference championship. They've been in the playoffs year in and year out. They have excellent players, well coached. But right now, as you look at the Buffalo Bills, and I have it here, they're just not on that top tier of NFL contenders. They're cut below right now. They are a upper echelon, middle of the pack team, right? So they're not, they're not the Commanders. They're better than, say, a team, they're better than probably a Pittsburgh, even a team like that, something to that ilk. But they're just not what they have been in the last couple of years as a legit Super Bowl contender, as a team that you think this team could possibly win the Super Bowl. Now, early in the season, a couple of weeks ago, yes, they looked, especially after the Miami game, they looked like a team that could compete and play with anybody. But right now, and part of it is injuries, and part of it, again, to me, and I'll keep harping on this, is just they just have no identity from an offensive standpoint, and they have philosophical issues within that franchise. And I don't need to beat that horse again. It is what it is. I don't think McDermott will be the coach next year myself. But that's another story for the offseason. But right now, they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives without question. They definitely could miss the playoffs. They just don't look. When you look at San Francisco, when you look at even San Francisco, when you look at Philadelphia, Kansas City, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Baltimore, those teams, the Bills just are not there right now. They're just not. And I don't see, again, I don't see where this gets better. Maybe they can scratch out enough wins to make the playoffs. Again, it's very hard not to make the playoffs in the NFL in 2023 with the extra team, the extra round. So you got to be bad not to make it. But again, the schedule is brutal. The schedule is brutal, and it's going to be difficult for them to make the playoffs because the AFC. Listen, looking at AFC standings, I mean, you have. I'll pull up the standings now. There are right now, if the season ended, Buffalo would be out the playoffs. Like Cincinnati would barely be in. Okay, Cincinnati would be the seventh spot because of that slow start they got off to. They got off to like the 1-3 start. So the AFC is deep. I mean, you have three teams that have only two losses. Okay, you have one, two, three, four, five teams who are at least two games above 500. Excuse me, four teams. My bad. Apologize. Four teams that are at least above two games above 500. And then Houston is lurking at 4-4. The Chargers are lurking at 4-4. Jets are still in the mix. I don't have any faith in the Jets, but there's just a lot of quality teams in the AFC right now, and Buffalo is just kind of like, they look like a team. They look like a franchise that needs just not rebuilding. You got Josh Allen, but they need to reload. They need to reset the table as far as what direction their franchise is actually going in. That's what they look. That's what they look like right now as a franchise. They kind of look like they just don't. Again, everybody has injuries. But they to me, and I've said this, and I'll continue to say this. To me, their issues are as much internal as they are on the field, and I don't see it improving. I don't see this thing getting better. I think this is who they are. I think they're headed towards a 10-7, 9-8 type deal. I can't see them winning 11 games. Like I don't know with their 5-4. Like I don't know where six more wins are coming from. Like I don't see six wins. That like I said, if they're 10-7, they would have done a hell of a job. They look like a 9-18, right? Especially with their schedule. That might be good enough to get into the playoffs. Who knows? We don't. A lot of these teams are going to start knocking each other off, especially when you get really into more of a divisional play. But right now, this team, like I said, they're not a contender. They're just not, and it's gotten to a point to where the defense can no longer cover up for the offense, because even defensively they've started to fall off. They've fallen off a bit. They're not what they once were defensively over the past couple of years when they were a legit top 2, top 3 defense. They're just not. They right now are playing like a middle of the pack defense. You can move the ball in Buffalo. They still have some effective pass rushers at times, but you can run the ball on them. Joe Burrow threw the ball all over the place. So it's not this shutdown, lockdown defense that could make up for an inconsistent offense. It'll be, again, I'm kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but it'll be a very interesting offseason in Buffalo. Very, with the direction of that franchise or in terms of where it's going. But right now, they're going to be fighting they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives. Like I think their season probably will come down to. To be honest with you, I think they're probably going to have to win that division to make the playoffs. I don't think two teams are coming out the AFC East. I think that's going to come down to them or Miami as far as their playoff berth. Games to note. Of course, you had the game in Frankfurt in Germany. Again, I understand you have to go like the envelope promotes this product worldwide, all over the world, but I don't like this type of game with this magnitude of game to be overseas. Like I just myself. I just don't like it. This game, I mean, put this on a Monday night. I mean, these Monday night games, or put this on hell. I don't. Uh, this could have been the Sunday, not the Sunday night game, but yeah, put this on a Monday night. Send San Diego and the Jets to Frankfurt or whatever. Send somebody else. I didn't really like this particular game to be in Germany, but whatever. Kansas City gets by Miami 21-14. The same story for Miami. They go up against a quality opponent and they look average to mediocre. Their three losses, they've been held to 20, 17, and 14, under 300 yards in this particular game. We've stated what Miami is not. They're again similar to Buffalo. They're just not a contender. They probably, they'll probably be in the playoffs just based off that offense alone. And they're not going to be playing a top team every week. But it's been a long time since I've seen this type of discrepancy of a team when they face upper echelon competition. You don't see this big a differential. Like they look against average to mediocre competition, they look all world from an offensive standpoint. Like they look like it's record setting. They look like the greatest offense, one of the greatest offenses ever. They run into some teams that actually can play defense, and they just it's really remarkable the stark difference in terms of output and yardage and all that stuff that you see in these games with Miami. It really is. I like. I don't. It's hard to explain. I mean, obviously the competition, the teams that they lost to are playoff teams. I mean, have been playoff teams. Kansas City, Buffalo, and Philadelphia. Two of them were in the Super Bowl last year. I get that those teams are high quality, high level teams, but even in one of those games, you would figure that they would be able to explode for 25 to 30 points, or just one of those games and have a game where they just put up a bunch of yardage. But that has not been the case whatsoever with Miami. Kansas City didn't even play well. Like Mahomes was okay in that game. They ran the ball okay. Like Kansas City basically beat them with their B minus C plus game. Kansas City won. It was winning ugly. You fall down 21-0. Again, there's been the same pattern with Miami. They'll get down, make this fake comeback, and then fall short. Like they did that against Philadelphia, down 17-3, tied the game at 17, and Philadelphia just says, enough of this, and wins going away. Buffalo game, started out interesting, but then second half, it was a runaway. This game was similar to the Philadelphia game. You fall behind, you play catch up, you get into within 7, and then not able to course on the. They did actually have the ball, but bad snap, and Kansas City was able to survive. Not a very well played game. Neither team was. I mean, obviously Miami didn't play well, but even in the victory, Kansas City didn't look great. And again, I'm going to always give Kansas City the benefit of the doubt. Like I just know, I know how great that coach is. I know how great that quarterback is. My heart tells me that they are not what they were last year or in their previous or in years where they've won the Super Bowl. That they're a slight notch down, but I will never doubt that team, never, because they know how to win big games, and more importantly, they are playing excellent defense. Kansas City is playing very good defense this year. So maybe their defense is good enough to make up for the fact that their offense is not, lights out, because it hasn't been this year at all. We know that we detailed how their receivers have had trouble getting open, and they're not a team that's going to run the ball down your throat. We've watched Andy Reid for 25 years, 24 years. He tests run the ball. He runs the ball because he'll have to at times. We understand that Andy Reid does not really want to run the football. But again, they are Kansas City. I will never doubt that team as long as those two, as long as they had that coach and that quarterback. Team that looks like a team that is playing as well as anybody and could be and right now is rolling is the Baltimore Ravens. They absolutely annihilate Seattle 37-3. This game was as one sided as you can get. You're talking about outgaining a team 515 to 151. That's like some division. That's like uh, it's like Alabama versus Appalachian State or something like that. It's like one of those college football differentials of a team that just playing to get a paycheck, playing one of the big boys to get a paycheck. But it was that one sided. Listen, we understand Seattle is a solid team, but they're not, and they will be competing for that division just based off the fact that San Francisco has hit a snag, has hit a rough spot here. But Seattle's not is not real. But the bottom line is Baltimore has been destroying everybody. They have the best point differential in the NFL. Their last 4 wins, they're beating teams by an average of 20 points, which is like just doesn't happen in the NFL. And frankly, when I'm looking at this Baltimore team, this is the best that they've looked since they won the Super Bowl in 2012. To be honest with you, in terms of my belief in them, I didn't believe them in 2019. I'm sorry, I was wrong. They fell to Tennessee in the playoffs. I just didn't. I didn't trust that team. I didn't like everybody. I didn't. Lamar Jackson. That was his MVP year. But again, they had minimal playoff experience. That team just didn't do it for me. I just didn't trust them. And it proved to be. I was proven to be right as they went out in their first game in the divisional round against Tennessee. This team is different, and this team is a physical team. They defensively have been great all season long. They fixed that from the past couple of years. We know, all right, we've talked about detailed how Lamar Jackson looks like a completely different quarterback, and he should be in consideration. I think the MVP race right now, I would have Jalen Hurts 1, probably Lamar Jackson 2, to be honest with you. Mahomes will be up there, of course, but those will be my top two, Hurts and Lamar Jackson in the MVP race. But he looks like a completely different quarterback. Now, again, Baltimore, there's certain teams that get judged based off just their postseasons. Baltimore, Kansas City, of course, Philadelphia. The Ravens are Buffalo. The Ravens are in that category as well. Ravens could go 16, 17, and they can go 15-2, right? Home field, Lamar MVP. No one's going to take them serious until Lamar goes out there and performs, and this offense goes out there and does it in the postseason. Now, again, this is not the same type of offense they've ran in the past couple of years where they failed in the postseason. This offense is a little bit different. They've made tweaks, and the bottom line is Lamar, they still want to run the ball down your throats. They still want to play with a sense of physicality, but Lamar Jackson is a completely different player. But he's going to have to, of course, show that in the postseason. And the way your defense is playing, it's hard pressed for me to think that this team is not at minimum in the AFC Championship. Now, again, I could, end up being dead wrong because maybe they run into Seattle. Excuse me, maybe they run into Cincinnati in the divisional round, Cincinnati. We know what Cincinnati is, but I think this team will be in the AFC Championship myself. And they are, we'll talk about it later on. They are amongst the teams that can absolutely go to and win the Super Bowl. Like I said, they look tremendous right now. They're beating quality teams. They're not making some of the dumb mistakes that they've made in the last couple of years with play calling. They look like they have an identity. And more importantly, again, that defense has been fixed. They've completely fixed that defense. And last year, that defense couldn't stop anybody in a big spot. It just couldn't. You didn't trust their defense at all. Everybody talked about Lamar Jackson this, Lamar Jackson that. Like, no, their defense is just not there right now. That's not a Raven. That is not a vintage Raven defense, and they won't go anywhere with that defense. And they have like I said, they are playing lights out defense right now, and have, of course, one of the best home fields. When they're right, have one of the best home fields in the league. And they returned to that. And again, you can just look at how they're playing, look at what they're doing to these teams. In the NFL, you don't see too many two-score games in the NFL. Most of these games in the NFL are close down to the wire fourth quarter games. Not with the Ravens. Like the Ravens have spanked, Cleveland, Detroit, and now Seattle. Which makes Cincinnati look that much more dangerous because they barely got by Cincinnati, and they caught Cincinnati at a good time when Cincinnati when Burrow was not healthy. So that lets you know how good Cincinnati is. The fact that they were able to really push Baltimore to the limit, and I think that again that division will come down to that Cincinnati Baltimore game in December. Late December. I think that division will come down to that. And I think both of those teams are going to the playoffs. The question is, in the AFC North, will we make it to the playoffs? I think Baltimore and Cincinnati are going to the playoffs. There's no question in my mind if both those quarterbacks stay healthy, that those two teams will be in the playoffs. But right now, Baltimore playing as well as any team in the sport. Game of the week, even though it had featured 20 penalties, it still was a very good game. We have been let down by some of these games that were hyped up with Miami and San Francisco, Dallas earlier this season with Miami, Philadelphia. But this one actually kind of lived up to the billing as far as entertainment and going down to the wire. Philadelphia was able to get by Dallas 28-23, despite the fact that Dak Prescott probably without question played his best game of the season, probably one of his best games in a couple of years. To be honest with you, he frankly outplayed Jalen Hurts. He's 29 for 44 for 374 with 3 touchdowns. But here we go with the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys actually, I thought, outplayed Philadelphia on the field. Like physically, I thought they outplayed Philadelphia. They held the running game in check. Thought they did a relatively good job on Hurts. They outgained Philadelphia in this game. I really thought that the pass rush started getting the Hurts a little bit. But here's the problem. And despite the fact that they fell behind 28-17, but here's the problem with Dallas: situational football and just stupidity. Here's their last few not possessions. Here's their last few plays, the last 4 or 5 plays. False start, sack, incomplete pass, penalty, a Hail Mary that did not reach the end zone, despite the fact that they were at the Philadelphia 27-yard line. They were gift wrapped this game at the end by Philadelphia. Philadelphia played some of the dumbest football as far as penalties that you can ever play. Dallas was on there. Dallas had no timeouts and had the ball at the Philadelphia. They started the last drive at their own 14-yard line and were able, within a blink of an eye, they're on Philadelphia's side of the field. It had multiple plays to go out there and possibly win the game. But again, Dallas just can't get out their own way. We'll come up with our Super Bowl list. They're not on it as a team that can win a Super Bowl. And the thing that would piss me off if I were a Dallas fan, I think Dallas from a talent standpoint could play with and beat anybody. Like I really do. I think they have excellent talent. But they just find a way to do dumb shit. And again, it is, and they are the polar opposite, the 180 of what the New England Patriots used to be. In terms of the Patriots not beating themselves, allowing you to make mistakes that will beat you, in terms of allowing you to make mistakes that will give them the game. The Dallas Cowboys are the polar opposite of that. They're going to find a way to do something. I mean, again, this wasn't a game to knock Dax out, but you got to know where you are on the field on that 2-point conversion that would have cut the lead to within a field goal. So you get that, you're driving, you kick a field goal to tie the game, go send it to overtime. It's 28-25 instead of 28-23. It's a little stuff. It's the little things that accumulate and will have you out the first round of the playoffs, or will have you sitting at home in general. Now that won't be. I don't think that will be the case with Dallas. I think Dallas probably will be a playoff team. They're not that many quality teams in the NFC, as is similar. They're not that many quality teams in the NFC, as is the case in the AFC. But I can't take this team serious as a Super Bowl contender with just as many mental mistakes that they make, especially in these big games. They're not. These big games. The room for error is small. You're playing a team that's just as good, if not better than you. You just can't. You can't have these just play calling, such a bad situational football. Now, both teams made a lot of mistakes as far as penalties. I mean, this game, they both got 10. They both got 10 penalties. There were 20 penalties in this game altogether. And again, I don't think Philadelphia played. Philadelphia didn't play anywhere near its A game. Philadelphia probably played this B minus, similar to Kansas City. They probably played a B minus game in that game, or B. Considering it's, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that it was a divisional rival. They know you, but Philadelphia didn't play well in this game. They made enough plays. And didn't have like the critical mistake. So I don't trust Dallas. I never have since Jerry Jones got rid of Jimmy Johnson, and frankly never will. Like they are who they are. Now this look, 2.5 games is not insurmountable at this point, but it's going to be pretty. It's going to be a pretty steep climb for Dallas to win the division. Being basically 2.5 games and one down in terms of the head-to-head. Philadelphia has the road to the Super Bowl will more than likely go through Philadelphia. So this was a big game from that standpoint. Again, you wasted a Dak Prescott performance, but again, Dallas has nobody to blame but themselves from that standpoint. Who won the week? CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback who is on his way to having one of the great rookie quarterback seasons in NFL history. And that's not hyperbole. Like you look at his numbers, Houston is in the hunt to make the playoffs. And that, right now he stands at 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. This past game against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay has a very good defense. Tampa Bay is not. I mean, we know Tampa Bay isn't fun to watch offensively, but defensively they're solid. 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like I said, he has been. He might as well give him the offensive rookie of the year right now. He'll probably end up. I mean, he probably has a chance, an outside chance, probably to make the Pro Bowl. Enough guys sit out to where he probably will be invited anyway. This franchise was dead in the water before they drafted him. This was one of the worst run franchises in the league, easily bottom 5. And he basically has single-handedly resurrected this franchise and given them some hope. I mean, they have hope at least, as bad as they are run, because he's been that great this season. And without question, he won the week. It's really interesting to see that they're capable of even putting nice pieces around them, because they are such a miserably run franchise. They are a horrible franchise, but they got it right with him. So you gotta give him credit from that standpoint, because he has been absolutely lights out. Great performance against Tampa Bay, and it'll be interesting to see if he can get them to the playoffs. They're right there in that division. I know Jacksonville. Jacksonville is the Class A division. They're up 2 games on Jackson. They're up 2 games on Houston. But I meant to say they're right there for a playoff spot. Jacksonville more likely is going to win that division, but they will be right there challenging for a playoff spot. And again, this guy has single-handedly put that team, made that team relevant as far as possibly making the playoffs. So we had kind of like a round robin this week. A lot of big games. You had Miami, Kansas City, Philadelphia played Dallas, Cincinnati, Buffalo. So you had a bunch of teams that were in action against perceived contenders or against playoff caliber teams, Baltimore against Seattle. Um, they're about, I would say right now, as we look at to the crystal ball of the rest of the season in terms of who can win the Super Bowl right now. I think there are five teams, and three of them are in the AFC. I would say Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. Those are your three teams that can win the Super Bowl in the AFC. Philadelphia and San Francisco. And that's the list. So if you hear like 8, 9, 10 teams, that's a bunch of bullshit. There's not 8, 9 teams that can win the Super Bowl. You want to say 8, 9 teams that can get to a conference championship? Okay, cool. But in terms of winning the Super Bowl, there's 5 teams. Miami's not on that list. Dallas is not on that list. Who else? Detroit is not on that list. Of course, we know Seattle's not on that list. No one in the NFC South. Somebody's going to have to win that division, but nobody is not even close to that. Jacksonville's not on that list. There are going to be some people that try to put Jacksonville. They're not quite there yet. They don't have enough personnel yet. Not quite there. A year away. They're not there. They're not there yet. They're close. A lot close. They're close, but I can't envision Jacksonville going to the Super Bowl. I just can't. I could be listen. I could be dead wrong. I've been wrong before. I'd be dead wrong, but I don't envision Jacksonville to be a legit Super Bowl contender. Sorry, Jacksonville. I just don't. And of course, I told you about the Cowboys. Cowboys, they're the Cowboys. They're not. Yeah, but this is the list, and Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Burrow. Those are probably 4 of the 5 of your top 5 MVP candidates. I would put Hurts and Jackson are 1 and 2. Burrow is coming fast. Mahomes probably is would be 3rd. I mean, matter of fact, let me look up the MVP odds right now because now I'm actually curious on what are the MVP odds. Purdy is the only guy that's like that wouldn't belong. Of course, doesn't belong on that list. But the only guy that you have question marks about in regards to quarterbacks with the top teams, MVP. So right now, VegasInsider.com. Mahomes is a favorite right now at plus 275. Hurts, so it's Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar Jackson. Tua, just based off sheer numbers, is 4th. Burrow is 5th. But Burrow's coming fast. Those are your top 5. Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Tua, and Burrow are your top 5. Yeah. Yeah, and it was updated November 2nd. Yeah. Those are your top 5 right now as far as MVP. Myself, I would put Mahomes, Hurts, Tua, Burrow are your top 4. Then this one. Say. Yeah. Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Tua, and Burrow. Burrow's coming fast. Myself, I would say I would give us lean towards Hurts right now. Like I don't think Mahomes has been good. I'm not gonna knock. Mahomes has been good. I think Burrow. I would lean towards. I probably would lean towards. I would lean towards Hurts. It's close though. It's still wide. It will go down to. It was still wide open. Mahomes has started. His interceptions have picked up. He hasn't been good in the last couple games. Mahomes hasn't been good in the last 2 games. It's going to come. It's going to come down to the last. It's definitely like the last couple games per se. But if Philadelphia finishes something like they're 8-1 now. Philadelphia finishes like I don't think envision 16-1. They finish like 15-2. You'd be hard pressed. I have to give that Hurts if they finish with the best record or have just 16-2. But again, it's not one guy has separated themselves from that standpoint. But getting back to the contender standpoint, like those guys are like four of the top quarterbacks in the league in terms of who they're contenders. So it's that, like, you'll hear all this wide open shit about, it's wide open. It's really not that one. The NFL is wild from week to week because of the lack of quarterbacks they are, and because of, like I said, the difference between a have and have nots. But when it comes to in terms of winning a championship, there are really only a couple. There are only 4 or 5 teams that can win a championship. It's not as open as people will make it out to be honest with you. And if you don't have one of these guys, chances are, outside of San Francisco, you probably don't have a legit chance. You probably don't have a legit chance to win a title. Now, again, I'm sure teams are not going to be crazy about playing Miami in the playoffs because of how explosive that offense can be. But again, we've seen Miami against top tier competition and how that turns out. Stock up, stock down, stock up. The AFC North. Again, we talked about this division a little bit earlier. Excuse me, a little bit earlier in the season, and I was just wondering if can it keep up this pace, and is not only kept up this pace, it's even increased the pace. You have all 4 teams that are not only over 500, but 2 games over 500, which that just doesn't happen in the NFL, especially with all the parity that we have in the league. But that AFC North is just absolutely loaded. Those Cleveland's defense, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Pittsburgh, playing with pride and playing hard. It's just it's gonna be a fun division to watch down the stretch. And that Pittsburgh win over Baltimore looks even better now. The way Baltimore has played over the past few weeks. At the time, you kind of just said that rivalry game, anything can happen. But you gotta give Pittsburgh a lot of credit, winning that game. The way Baltimore, considering how Baltimore has played, and just considering how dominant Baltimore has been offensively over the past few weeks in their wins. But that division is going to be a mad scramble for that second spot. For that third spot, I think Baltimore and Cincinnati will separate themselves and take 2 of those spots. I do believe that one of those teams, Cleveland or Pittsburgh, will get into the playoffs. I do believe, and you probably have to lean towards Cleveland because they have better overall personnel. But again, Pittsburgh coach and culture, you lean towards Pittsburgh. But yeah, that division is going to be fun to watch. Stock down. No, I'm not bashing on Zach Wilson. And it's not about that. I don't need any analysis. I'm not going to give a deep analysis on how terrible Zach Wilson is. The reason I have Zach Wilson up here is just the discourse of stock down on the discourse of Zach Wilson. If I hear another reporter, another analyst, or somebody say how bad this guy is, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, no shit. Like, water is wet. We know Zach Wilson is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. What do you want the Jets to do? Like, realistically, has anybody watched the NFL in quarterbacking this year and how many terrible quarterbacks there are playing? Not on rosters, playing, starting. It's week 9 of the season. You had 7 rookies start in week 9. 7. And all their names is not CJ Stroud. We're talking about guys who should not be on the field. Like, the state of quarterbacking is bad. I believe I touched on this in the podcast last year. how concerned I was. Me and Rob Sell talked about it. How concerned I was about the state of quarterback in the league, despite the fact of how much young talent you had. We talked, Herbert and Burrow and Lamar Jackson. There's a lot. There's a lot at the top, but that middle to lower class of quarterbacking is horrible in the NFL. I mean, it's dreadful, and that's without injuries. You get injuries, look out. Now again, there have been a number of injuries. Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, just name a few. But even still, uh, you got guys who are playing quarterback. You look up and say, "Huh? Well, he's starting. He's starting." Like guys who should barely be in the league playing quarterback. So I don't know what you want the Jets to do about Zach Wilson. Like that whole put anybody else in there. Nah, that it doesn't work that way. Just look at the league. All you have to do is look at the league to know that they're just not. They're just no. They're barely any quarterbacks. Once you get past about 7 to 8, the pickings are slim. Like think about it. So you have what? Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. We go to the top of the heap right here. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, not in particular order. Jalen Hurts, Burrow, that's 4. Herbert, 5. Who else? Who else I'm missing here? And then you go to that, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, I guess. In that, you want to say Brock Purdy. I'm saying the pickings are slim. Like where are the where are the quarterbacks? Where? Tell me. Where are they at? No, I forgot Tua. Tua is the upper echelon. Tua is in that top. He's in that he's in one of those top tiers. Like Tua is a legit top 8, 9 quarterback. He might even top 7 quarterback, to be honest with you. But they like that middle class of quarterbacks, again, they're about 10 to 15 teams. And again, I read an article. There could be 12 different starting quarterbacks next year. There could be 12 teams that move off their starting quarterback. 12. That is over a third of the league. 32 teams in the league. That's over a third of the quarterbacks could have teams that could have a different starting quarterback. And I'm telling you right now, there are going to be some teams reaching in the draft this year. There are not that many prospects. No, like I said, Caleb Williams, I think is legit. I'm not Knicks. I'm sorry. I'm not on or the Drake May. I'm not as high on those guys as a lot of people are. Spencer Rattler. Like, okay, the pickings are slim in college this year. They're not that like it's okay. There are gonna be so many teams reaching for quarterbacks. You'll probably have 3 or 4 quarterbacks go in the first round when it probably only should be 1, maybe 2. But there are gonna be some teams really reaching for that in terms of drafting a quarterback and just F up their franchises. So I don't listen. Zach Wilson's horrible. We don't need. Again, I don't need countless hours of analysis telling me how bad Zach Wilson is. He was bad last year. I don't know what people expected this year when Rodgers got hurt. Like, yeah, he sucks. We get it. He can't play. Like when you lose a future Hall of Fame quarterback, there's no real replacement for him. And again, like when you're paying a guy what you're paying those types of guys, it's hard to almost impossible to have a decent backup. Decent good backups are making good money. You can't afford 2 good quarterbacks as far as from a money standpoint. That's just not going to happen. If you have a franchise type of quarterback, your backup quarterback is going to be near at the bottom of the barrel as far in terms of salary. You're not like at that point you're looking for a guy that's a system fit, somebody that you trust. And that is where a player and coaching comes in terms of in terms of development. We saw last year um, that saved Kansas City's ass against Jacksonville with their backup quarterback. That guy um, knew the system, did enough, and helped them win a playoff game. It certainly was not. I don't think he was one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league or backup quarterbacks in the league because you have Patrick Mahomes. So again, I don't get. I don't know what you want the Jets to do with in terms of Zach Wilson. I just don't. I can't believe I'm defending Zach Wilson. Well, I'm not even defending his play. I'm just the whole idea of like seeming like you could just pick up a quarterback off the street and that's going to save your team. This is not going to happen. Real thoughts. A couple of things basketball related. First, of course, you had the death of one Bobby Knight at the age of 83. We know Bob Knight, of course, as one of the great coaches in the history of college basketball. He retired as the winningest coach way back about well over a decade ago. It's been even longer than that from Texas Tech. He's been, of course, surpassed by a couple of coaches since then, like Roy Williams, Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim. Look, listen, I hear things about Bob Knight in regards to his legacy, and says, "Well, he has a complicated legacy." No, it's not. It's not complicated. And I'm going to tell you why it's not complicated. Um, Bob Knight, as a head coach, right? His track record as a head coach, his winning 3 championships, gold medal, Olympics, is one of the great resumes of all time. That we can never question Bob Knight as a basketball coach, as far as understanding the game of basketball, as far as graduating his players and what have you. Bob Knight, and I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but the guy was an ass. Like, let's be honest, he was an asshole. Okay, and I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but you're talking about a guy who choked a player, who headbutted a player, who once punched a cop in Puerto Rico, assaulted a cop. Okay, yeah, like this guy was not a good guy per se. This guy who brought a bull whip to a press conference. Brought a bull whip to a press conference. Think about that. Hey, it's on YouTube. Trust me, you don't believe me. It's actually on YouTube. He is, and like I said, I wouldn't want if I had a son, I don't have kids, but if I did have a son, I wouldn't want him to play. I would not want them to play for Bob Knight. Sorry. There are too many character flaws with Bob Knight. And there was the media really, and again, maybe just because there's a lack of social media and we don't have as much access now as we did back then, different time. But I don't think the media did the greatest job of holding him accountable to the level that they should have. I think Bob Knight falls alongside of a group of coaches, most of them in particular, most of them white, that won a lot of games, but that were not just great people. And their wins kind of washed over their sins as far as with them as in terms of their character. I would include him in the category with Woody Hayes. You do your research, on a guy like Adolph Rupp. Those guys, Bo Schembechler, these are guys that just didn't have the greatest reputations as people. Now, like I said, Bob Knight and Woody Hayes and Adolph Rupp, they won a ton of games, but you did do some dig deep in terms of from just a morale and character standpoint. Bob Knight treated the media like shit. Anytime you questioned him or had a journalistic type question, he would just he would immediately turn into a bully. And just go look at the interview. He did an interview with Jeremy Schaap. This is when Jeremy Schaap was young. I mean, maybe Jeremy Schaap was in his mid-20s, early 30s, mid-20s. He was, really making his way in the landscape. Was trying to get out from under the shadow of the legendary Dick Schaap, who's a legendary media personality, a legendary just sports personality in general. Dick Schaap, sports reporters, the whole nine. So Jeremy Schaap is out there, just at this, he was trying to get from under that. And he did a great interview with Bob Knight. He came at Bob Knight, it was respectful, but yet he did not back off. And you know how he got Bob Knight? When Bob Knight said, "You're not your father." That was checkmate for Jeremy Schaap. That means these questions are so good, you don't want to answer them. All you can say is, "You're not your father." It'd be like getting in an argument with somebody and they say, "You're ugly." They have no retort. Or they just it was again, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, but that's how he treated the media. Like, no, you couldn't say anything about him. You couldn't question him. I get the sense that he had a bunch of yes people around him that would just kiss his ass. I kind of get that sense that I don't know. Again, I question how many friends that this dude really have, to be honest with you. And again, I know I'm speaking ill of the dead, but if you tell a complete story of Bob Knight, you have to tell everything. He is one of the greatest coaches of all time. Okay, he is one. It's not even a question. That man when he had talent, and he went toe to toe with any coach in the history of basketball. I watched him. He's a better coach than Dean Smith, and I'm a North Carolina guy. It pains me to say that, but he was a better coach than Dean Smith. He beat Dean Smith twice in big games. 81 championship and the 84 regional semifinal. That Carolina team in 84 was loaded. Probably Dean Smith's, from a talent standpoint, Dean Smith's best team, and they lost to an okay Indiana team that didn't even reach the Final Four. Okay. So the dude could coach his ass off. He could coach, like, he was a genius coach. He was. But he was one of those guys that just was specific to a certain era. Bob Knight could not. And this is why Krzyzewski is the GOAT for coaches in college basketball, besides all the records. But Krzyzewski was able to evolve with the times, with the kids, with everything that was going on. Bob Knight couldn't do that. He got to a certain point where Bob Knight, as the kids he wasn't going to go after certain recruits. Like, "Hey, I'm Indiana, you come to me." And it's like, "Nah, Bob, you actually have to do it." It's not like that anymore. That day is done. The kids don't care about tradition and what they're not coming there for you as much as they're coming there to make the NBA. And he couldn't make that transition. Which is fine. He had done all he needed to do. Like, he had accomplished everything and then some. By the time that, when that time period came up, he had done everything from a basketball standpoint. But again, I think the lesson to be learned here is you have to tell the complete story. When you're talking about someone's life, now I'm thinking about, and Kobe Bryant wasn't like, Kobe Bryant as a human being was not Bob Knight. Like people actually liked Kobe Bryant, players revered him, and things of that nature. But Eagle, Colorado is a part of Kobe Bryant's resume. It's part of it. It is. It just is like that. There's now he got cleared of charges. He was cleared of charges, but that was a dark time in Kobe's life, and he was vulnerable about it and talked about it in the Showtime documentary that came out. It came out in, I think, 2015 or so. But it's a part of it. Like you have to tell the complete picture of someone's legacy. I think that's a lesson to me. Like, you can't just leave out this part or leave out that part or not include. You have to tell the totality of someone when they leave this earth. It's just not, because you're not doing the story justice, the story of the person's life justice, if you just leave out one part and don't include this part, don't include that part. So, Bobby, again, I think with Bobby Knight, I got a call the way I see it. Like, this guy There are a lot of bad things. There are a lot of bad things. Not so much like in borderline on criminal, like choking a player. That's assault. Like, if you and I we go choke somebody out in the street. That can go left. That probably will go left quickly, but we could possibly go to jail for that or get some. It'd be a severe consequence that they would chose to press charges. So we can't pretend like, again, all those wins are great, but they don't wash away uh, some of the negative aspects and some of the things that he did. They just don't. Um, Victor Wembanyama. So NBA season is about a week old, and if you haven't got a chance to see Victor Wembanyama, you have to go watch if you're a basketball fan. You because you just appreciate just this 19-year-old wonder kid, just who's a freak of nature, is going to actually change the game. And I'm telling you right now, you better get the San Antonio Spurs now. You better get them now. It will not take long for them whatsoever to become championship contenders. It just won't. He is this numbers don't even tell the story on him on type of season he's had so far. 19 points, about 8 rebounds, couple of blocks. He just has his ability to impact winning basketball games. San Antonio has lost 2 straight. They're 3-4 now, but that roster is horrible. It's just a horrible roster. But again, they'll fix that roster. And again, you better get him right now. Here's what Kevin Durant said about Wembanyama. They played twice, and they San Antonio beat them both times. First time, he had this basically like a 20-point comeback, and he was great in both games, especially that last Friday. He had like 38. Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday. It was Thursday. He had like 38, which is his season career high. Here's what Durant said about him. He's his own player, person. He would be much different than anybody who's ever played. That was part of it. The other part was he's different. He's long, athletic. He's mobile. He can shoot it. He's got skills. He's tough. It was Thursday. He put up 38 and 10 when the Spurs took out the Suns last Thursday. When he raised up and shot the ball, it's like there's no way. This is Kevin Durant, who has probably like a 7'3" wingspan in his own mind, in his own right, and is over is 7 feet tall. There's no way I'm going to be close to this, so I just have to play hard and contest because you're going to foul him or he's going to make the shot. He misses, it's on him. This is Kevin Durant, okay, talking about a guy who's only played 7 games in his career. This is Kevin Durant, who is in his own right one of the greatest players of all time, somewhere in that 12 to 15 range. 2-time champion, gold medalist, has accomplished MVP, has accomplished everything, scoring titles, has accomplished everything you can name. That he's done it all. Kevin Durant. You can criticize him for some of the moves and things of that nature, bounce going from franchise to franchise. But Kevin Durant, without question, is an all-time great. So for somebody of Kevin Durant's ilk to say the things that he said about a rookie, just lets you know all you need to know. Now, again, we live in an era where a lot of these guys know each other, share agents, branding companies, things of that nature. It is a friendly era from that standpoint. Party together, so on and so on. Whatever. That's the era that we're in. With that being said, that is for Kevin Durant to say that about a rookie just tells you all you need to know about this dude. It just really tells you all you need to know. That is not regular praise. That is like this guy is going to be a problem type praise. And I'm telling you right now, he will be the best player in the league by his 3rd year. I guarantee if he stays healthy, I guarantee he'll be the third best. He will be the best player in the league by his 3rd year, by year 3. And it's not out of the possibility by that next year, following next season, he'll be the best player in the league, following the 2024-25 season. That's on the table. That's absolutely on the table. I would say year 3, following year 3, But year two is on the table because like I said, he does stuff that impacts winning. He does stuff that impacts winning, and again, they're going to get like I said, if you're going to get San Antonio, you better get them this year. You better get them now. That team will not look like it won't remotely resemble this time next year. We'll be talking about them as playoff contenders, possibly fringe championship contenders. I think this thing is going to happen fast with him. I really do. I think it's going to be similar to Tim Duncan from that standpoint. One last thing. Excellent, great game last night with the Celtics and Timberwolves. Timberwolves again giving another undefeated team, or previously undefeated team, their first loss. They did it to Denver last week. They get the Celtics this week. Get the Celtics last night. Great showdown with between Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum. Edwards getting the best of him. Listen, Edwards will be a top 10 player by the time this season ends. He's going to be on an All NBA team, and they got to get Karl Anthony Towns out of there. Like Karl Anthony Towns last night, he was like 8 points and 6 fouls. In order for Edwards to fulfill his full potential, I don't think Karl Anthony Towns could be on the team. If you want to win at a high level, I don't think you can have Towns on that team. Edwards is special. Again, he went at Jason Tatum. This guy has, when I mean zero, when you talk about zero fear, he is the epitome of that. Again, 20, he's 22, just turned 22. And I think this guy can, I'm really thinking this guy possibly could be an MVP in this league. I'm starting to believe that he has that type of ability, not just be All NBA or a perennial All Star, but that he has the ability to eventually he could be a MVP caliber player in this league. That's how like that his ceiling, his upside, just the mentality that he has, how hard he competes. He's gonna have a big year. I mean, he's through 6 games, averaging like 28 on 52% from the field. And it's his team. There's no it's his team. In Minnesota, again, I gotta get Karl Anthony Towns out of there. This guy, that's just to be the addition by subtraction. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your evening. So long.